She left before the dawn, the woman who walked away the night Menglong needed her most. The city never sleeps, but that night even the neon lights of Shanghai seemed dimmer, like they, too, had grown weary of pretending. Menglong sat by the window of his high-rise apartment, staring into the silent glow of the skyline that had once represented his dreams. To the world, he was the man with the soft smile, the perfect voice, the eyes that could melt through screens. But to himself, in that empty apartment, he was just another man who had been left behind. Hours before dawn, she left. No note, no call, just silence that echoed louder than any argument ever could. Her perfume lingered on the couch, the same one she used to fall asleep on after rehearsals, her laughter once filling the room with warmth. Now it was only the sound of his heartbeat, slow, heavy breaking. He had begged her to stay that night, not with words, but with the way he looked at her, his eyes pleading, his voice cracking as he said her name one last time. She didn't turn around. The door clicked shut, and that single sound shattered him more than any betrayal ever could. To the public, Menglong's death came as a shock. The headlines were sterile. Actor and singer Menglong found dead at home. But no headline captured the quiet storm that led to that moment, the night when love walked away and hope followed. Those who truly knew him understood that it wasn't fame, nor the pressure of the industry, that broke him. It was heartbreak, the kind that doesn't scream, it whispers, until it silences everything else. They had met years before, during a filming break. She was the kind of woman who made the world seem lighter, free-spirited, passionate, unpredictable. She wasn't just his lover, she was his muse. In every lyric he wrote, in every glance on stage, her shadow lingered. But love in the entertainment world is a fragile thing, constantly tested by distance, secrecy, and the constant hum of cameras waiting to catch you falling. For months, you tried to hold on to her. Despite the long shoots, the sleepless nights, the loneliness of hotel rooms, he always found time to call her, to send her songs he never released, to remind her that she was still his home. But something had changed. She had grown distant, her voice colder, her replies shorter, her laughter no longer soft, but strained. He felt it slipping, the way love often does, quietly without warning. The night she left, Menglong had been rehearsing a song. Those who were close to him said it was a song he'd written about her, a melody so fragile that even humming it felt like touching glass. The lyrics spoke of loss, of promises fading like stars before dawn. That same song was found unfinished in his notebook the next morning. The last line stopped mid-sentence, as if his hand couldn't carry the weight anymore. His close friend, one of the few people he trusted, recalled that you had called him hours before the tragedy. His voice trembled, breaking between pauses. "She's gone," he said softly, "and I think I finally understand what it means to be truly alone." His friend tried to comfort him, but you only whispered, "It's okay. I just wanted someone to know." That was his last conversation. What people often forget is that behind every celebrity headline lies a human story, a heart that beats, bleeds, and breaks just like anyone else's. Menglong had spent years portraying characters who were strong, composed, unshakable. Yet off-screen, his soul was fragile, bruised by the weight of expectations and a love that slipped away when he needed it most. Friends later revealed how deeply he loved her. He would cancel meetings just to catch her calls, send her songs she didn't know he'd written, and stare at her name on his phone long after she stopped replying. He believed in forever, even when forever had already ended. When she walked out that night, something inside him collapsed. It wasn't anger, it was emptiness, the kind that slowly drowns you in silence. The dawn came late that day. When the sunlight finally broke through the blinds, it fell upon a note he'd left on his table. It wasn't a letter to the world, nor a cry for help. Just 4 words, written with trembling hands, she left before dawn. Those words became a haunting echo for his fans, a symbol of heartbreak that reached beyond fame and screens. They painted murals, wrote poems, and created songs inspired by his final hours, trying to understand the pain he carried. But no one truly could, because the truth was simple yet devastating. Sometimes, love doesn't kill you all at once. It leaves you dying in pieces. There was something hauntingly poetic about how he lived and how he left. He had always been drawn to melancholy, to stories that mirrored his own silent sadness. In interviews, he often spoke about loneliness as if it were an old friend. Even when you're surrounded by people, he once said, there's still a kind of silence that follows you home. No one realized he was describing his own life. The woman, his muse, his heartbreak, never spoke publicly after his death. Some say she vanished from the spotlight entirely. Others claim she left the country, unable to face the guilt that followed her. But in the eyes of his fans, she became the phantom that haunted his final chapter, the one who turned away when he reached for light. Yet to blame her entirely would be to overlook the deeper tragedy. Menglong had been carrying emotional wounds long before that night. The loneliness of fame, the constant judgment, the inability to be his true self without scrutiny, it all built up like quiet waves crashing against him. Her leaving was simply the final wave that pulled him under. And still, the most tragic part wasn't his death. It was that, even as he slipped into darkness, he still loved her. His last messages to her, never sent, but found saved in his drafts, were not angry. They were tender. "I hope you find peace," one said. "If you ever think of me, remember I loved you more than the world ever knew." Those words tore through his fans' hearts when they surfaced later. They revealed not a man of bitterness, but one who, even in his pain, chose love over hatred. That was the kind of person he was, gentle, forgiving, endlessly loyal. Perhaps too loyal for a world that didn't know how to love him back. Now, years later, his story still lingers like a ghost in the halls of memory. His songs play softly on rainy nights, his smile frozen in countless photos, his name whispered in candlelight vigils held by fans who refused to forget. They still wonder, what if she had stayed? Would he still be here? Would the dawn have come differently? But maybe it wasn't just about her. Maybe Menglong's story is about every person who has ever loved too deeply, given too much, and found themselves empty in return. About those who smile through pain, who perform their best act while dying inside. He didn't die because of fame. He didn't die because of failure. He died because he believed that love could save him, and when it didn't, he didn't know how to save himself. As the world remembers him now, not just as an actor or singer, but as a fragile soul who carried too much love in a world too cruel to understand it, his story becomes a quiet reminder. Check on the ones who always say they're fine. The rain had started falling not long after she left. Soft at first, then heavier, as if the sky itself was mourning with him. Menglong didn't move from where he sat by the window. The city outside was alive with light, but his room was trapped in shadow. The only sound was the rain tapping against the glass, a rhythm that echoed his heartbeat. Slow, hollow, uncertain. He had always hated goodbyes, but that night's goodbye wasn't even spoken. She didn't cry, didn't turn, didn't pause long enough for him to say stay. He watched her walk away in silence, her figure swallowed by the hallway light until all that remained was the faint scent of her perfume and the quiet click of the closing door. That sound haunted him more than anything, the sound of finality. There had been fights before, misunderstandings, long silences that stretched between them like an ocean. But this time, something felt different. Final. You had sensed it in her eyes, the absence of warmth, the distance that no love could fill. She had already left long before her feet crossed the threshold. Hours passed, but he couldn't bring himself to sleep. Every corner of that apartment screamed her name. The couch where she used to curl up beside him after long filming days. The kitchen where they'd shared burnt noodles and laughter. The piano where she used to hum softly while he composed melodies for her. Every memory became a weapon, cutting deeper with each passing second. At around 2 a.m., he picked up his guitar. His hands trembled, but he strummed anyway. The melody was fragile, like glass about to break. His voice cracked as he whispered the words he'd written earlier that week. "If you leave before the dawn, I won't chase the morning light." It was supposed to be a song about strength, about acceptance, but that night it sounded like surrender. The lights in the room flickered as thunder rolled outside. The air was thick, heavy, suffocating. He stopped playing and looked at the empty side of the couch. Her favorite sweater was still there. He reached for it, pressing it against his face like it could bring her back. But all it brought was the realization that she was truly gone. He tried calling her, once, twice, then again. No answer. The phone's silence mocked him, each unanswered ring another reminder that love had finally abandoned him. The woman who once promised to be his forever had chosen to disappear when he needed her most. Friends would later say that Menglong was always too soft for this world, too kind, too forgiving. He loved with everything he had, and when that love left, it took everything with it. Fame had never been his shield, it was his mask. He smiled on stage, but behind the scenes he was breaking quietly, piece by piece. Around 3:15 a.m., he sent a message to her that she never replied to. "You said we'd watch the sunrise together. I waited." The simplicity of it was devastating. There were no accusations, no anger, just heartbreak, pure and unfiltered. He then opened his notebook, the same one he'd written in since his debut. The pages were filled with lyrics, sketches, and quotes, snippets of a soul trying to stay afloat. On the last page, under dim light, he wrote something new. "Some people leave quietly and take your world with them." Outside, the rain turned into a storm. Lightning flashed across the skyline, illuminating his reflection in the window. A man staring back at himself, but no longer recognizing who he was. The image of her leaving replayed in his mind like a film. He couldn't pause. He could still see the way her shoulders stiffened when he called her name, the slight hesitation before she walked out. That single moment became the line between living and existing. Around 4 a.m., he stood and walked to the balcony. The city stretched endlessly below him, a sea of glittering lights and distant voices. From up there, everything seemed both beautiful and unbearably lonely. He whispered her name into the cold wind, as if hoping it would carry his pain to wherever she was. But the only answer was silence. It said that heartbreak doesn't happen in one moment, it happens in fragments. That night, each fragment of Menglong's heart cracked under the weight of memories. The laughter they shared, the promises they made, the night they danced barefoot in the living room to a song that wasn't even playing. Every image tore him apart. At 5 a.m., dawn was near. The world was slowly waking, but for him it felt like the end. The sky began to lighten, soft pink blending with the last traces of night. It should have been beautiful, his favorite time of day. He had always told her he loved the way the world looked before sunrise, because it felt like hope. But now, that same dawn felt cruel. It was the promise of a new day he no longer wanted. On the table beside him lay the unfinished song, the one he had played hours before. The last line trailed off mid-word, ink smeared by a single drop of water. Whether it was from the rain or a tear, no one would ever know. When his friend arrived later that morning, the sun had already risen. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. The guitar still leaned against the wall. The phone was still on the couch, her last unread message flashing faintly on the screen. The rain had stopped, but its scent lingered in the air, a strange mixture of sorrow and peace. That was the morning the world lost Menglong. Fans across the globe were devastated. The news spread like wildfire, each headline colder than the last. But beneath the noise there was a collective ache, an understanding that the man they adored had died not because he was weak, but because he felt too deeply in a world that had forgotten how to feel at all. In the days that followed, people left flowers and letters outside his old apartment. Many wrote messages about love lost, about how his songs had carried them through their own heartbreaks. His final words, she left before dawn, became a symbol of quiet suffering, of how even the brightest souls can fade when love disappears. And as for her, the woman who walked away, no one ever saw her again. Some say she sent flowers anonymously to his funeral. Others say she vanished completely, consumed by guilt. But maybe she, too, was broken in her own way. Maybe she couldn't bear to watch him fall apart. Maybe she thought leaving would save them both. We'll never know. What remains is the tragedy of a love story that ended too soon. A reminder that sometimes the ones who shine the brightest burn out the fastest when left in the dark. Yu Menglong's heart wasn't just broken, it was emptied. And when she left before the dawn, she didn't just walk away from him. She took the last light he had left. The world still talks about that night, replaying his songs like prayers for a soul gone too soon. His voice lives on, echoing through speakers, through hearts, through memories. But for those who knew the truth, every lyric now carries a shadow, the shadow of a man who waited for love to return, and when it didn't, followed it into the dark. He never saw the sunrise again, but maybe, somewhere beyond it, he finally found peace.